Hey, how's it going? This is Office Hours. The date is, I don't know, I could just say, hey, that's the back of my monitor, but I think I'm gonna go with this. This is the 30th of January, and we're gonna be doing Office Hours today. It's gonna be great. So this is your opportunity to come and ask me questions about whatever. And I don't promise that all my answers will be good, but you can ask me questions. I also don't promise that I'll answer anything. Please keep it appropriate. Yeah, this is just an opportunity to ask questions. You can ask in the Zoom call. So there's a link to the Zoom on my website. Or you can ask in Discord. There's an Office Hours channel. Or you can ask in the chat. So I give priority to people who are in the Zoom, and then I go to the Discord, and then I check out the chat. And I'm streaming to multiple places, so I'm going to go to the multi-stream. So yeah, this is good fun. I just realized my teleprompter thing is not plugged in, or it keeps doing this. I don't know why. One second. It's on this side. I just unplug it and plug it back in, and then it works. Here we go. Sorry. And I plug it back in. I literally had it right there. Jeez, there we go. I'll have to figure out why that could possibly be happening. Okay, great. So let me share my screen. Also, with me. There we go. Oh, wrong camera. Hold on. Yoink. Camera. Here we go. This one. There we go. Also, fun fact. I have a new internet service provider. Actually, it's fast.com. And so now, my speed should be a lot faster than this. I'm wired in, so I'm not sure why. It should be about a gigabit. In the tests that I've done, it's been really, really fast. But what's more important is at least for this live stream, is the upload speed. Oh, you know what? I am somehow running on Starlink right now. I don't know why. Pretty much should probably just go down there and unplug Starlink and then only plug it in when I need to. Hold on, I'm just gonna check on one thing, and then we can get into questions and stuff. I'm just gonna look at the router configuration. It really should, it's saying that Starlink is the backup, but somehow I'm running on Starlink. It runs traffic through, I wish that I could just say, this is very much the backup, but I don't know. Anyway, I've dropped 0 frames, and 0% of the frames have been dropped so far. So thanks, Starlink, I guess. Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I see Jacob is here. What's up, Jacob? How you doing? So let me get into, I don't think I jumped on the Zoom yet. So let me get in there just in case somebody is in there, right there. And yoink. And then I will get to
recording in progress.
Question. Oh, what's up, Taryn? How are you doing?
Yo, I'm well. How are you, dude? Happy New Year.
Likewise, same to you. I'm just gonna share my screen, and then I'm gonna bring you onto the screen too, so folks can see and hear the people who are here. We're gonna just do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. There we go. And then I'm gonna take my face off of that. There we go. Sweet. So, yeah, what can I do for you? I see Naresh is here also. Hi, how are you doing, Naresh?
Hey Kent. Hi, I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's a good day. Thursdays I take my kids with me, whoever wants to go to the temple at before school. So I'm waking up at 5 in the morning. I really did not want to wake up this morning. But they wanted to go, and so I took them, and so I'm exhausted. That's where I'm at right now. So I'm gonna also bring over the Discord here. Oh, that's my family Discord. Boink. Hopefully there was nothing too personal in there. Okay, there we go. And last thing, I'm just going to grab, can I just copy this? Fine. Just going to grab this and stick it in the Discord for history's sake. Okay, great. Taryn, how can I help you? Or are you just here to hang out?
I'm hanging out, but knowing me, I'll have a question in like 5 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. Naresh, did you have a question on top of mind?
No, not currently. I was just thinking, what can I ask? I'm sure.
Okay, sounds good. And we got Scott in the house, and I see you've got your question here. Is this the one that you're here to ask about?
Yeah.
Okay, let me take a look at good rules and practices for error handling. We're talking about, here we've got our note editor server. Sorry, I haven't read this yet, so give me a second to onboard myself. Wrote an action which is extremely similar to this one. So here's our action right here. And so this is the note editor. So we're handling file uploads and all of that stuff too. This is where I struggle to make a decision about handle errors and potential error-prone spots in the file that could error. So on line 30, yoink, we've got this. Parse form data, should there be a try-catch around this? Oh, okay, gotcha. And then here, I'll read through all of it, and then we can discuss it holistically. Line 40, the call to the database. We do an early check if note is present on line 44, but what happens if there was an issue with the query or connection to the DB? So here we've got line 40, where we're doing a find to see whether the note is in the database. We're doing this as part of parsing the form submission as a super refine so that we can resolve the note ID into the note itself, and then we transform the images of the file upload into these buffers so that we can save those in the database ultimately. So by the time we finish with the super refine, this submission has not just the form data, but like the resolved values of all those things. So the note itself and the images that need to be uploaded. And yeah, or actually, I guess we're not getting the note itself. We're just checking if the note exists. So we're handling, that's part of the parsing piece, is making sure that that note exists. It doesn't parse successfully if the note doesn't exist. But yeah, it will have the new images and images that need to be updated. So great. And then line 53 and 70. So right here, we've got a promise all on both of these. I would debate using promise all settled versus all, so I know which ones failed. Okay, yep, good question. And then 102, we've got the upsert. And yeah, so that could potentially fail, like their restriction on the title, no duplicates, error is returned saying the title, where should we handle that? Okay, yeah, gotcha. A lot more time considering error handling. Yeah, so great question. Where do we handle errors for stuff like this? There are lots of places that we could handle errors. The general principle, I would say, is like we're in pursuit of a really excellent user experience. And right now, with the way that this code is written, the best that we can do for the user is give them an or in a couple of places, we can give them an error that says like something went wrong. In particular, if this update note fails, we're not going to give the user a very useful error message at all. In fact, if we go to the route where this is being used, the note editor, I think this has the error boundary. Yeah, right here. So we have this general error boundary handling a 404 that gives it at least a message that's specific. But we're not handling what would be a 500 if this were to fail. Or sorry, let me say that differently. We are handling it. We would show an error message, but we're not actually going to show anything super useful to the user. So like if I go here, then we go to the definition. what will happen is we have this default status handler that'll show the status. So it'd say 500 and then whatever the error message is. Not a great thing. We don't, like, user doesn't know what to do with those sorts of things. Like maybe they'd send it to their support person and that person would be able to help some. But yeah, it's not super. So depending on the situation and priorities in the company and things, this may be the best that you can do. But I think that like it doesn't take a lot of extra effort to just bake in better error handling. And so pretty much anywhere you feel like you can give the user more information that would unstick them, I guess, like, or unblock them, that could be useful. If the upsert fails, there's probably, like, I guess if you had a constraint on the title, then that could be useful. But even adding a try catch around this, the error that you would get for that constraint is not going to be very friendly to the user. And on top of that, it also won't be internationalized either. And so you're not going to want to rely on the upsert constraint failing. You would have to check that manually yourself and then have some sort of, like, if you're just English, then yeah, fine. You just do something similar to what we're doing here. In fact, if you had that constraint, you could probably just stick that check in here as well. And if, but yeah, if there was something else, like I think showing some error message, even like log to the console what the developer error message is, and then show to the user like an unknown error occurred or something would probably be an improvement on top of this. But to take it even further, if you know, like there are two categories of errors. There's the errors that you can anticipate, and there's the errors that like shouldn't happen but definitely can. And pretty much those, like most of the time, those are the 400 status code errors versus 500 status code errors, where yeah, the user submitted something wrong. They shouldn't have had that duplicate title, and so that's something we could check for. And we could do, in fact, like we have it set up right here. So if that really was the constraint, then I would just throw it in here inside of the super refine to check for that if they broke that. And if that were the case, then we're going to send them a 400. We were already set up to do that. The user doesn't really see that status code because we handle that. Or let me say that differently. We'd also want to add a status handler here. So for the 400, you could say, improper submission or something like that, and then the error message would come through here as well, and you can just display the error message that we have right here. So you just add an error message, title must be unique or something. And then yeah, like let's say that this fails. There's not a lot that the user can do about that anyway. So this is going to result in a 500 error that the user is going to see. And like I said, maybe log that to the console and show an unknown error occurred. It's like stuff like that is things the user can't do anything about it anyway. And so providing a really helpful or like you can't give them an actionable error message, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And so like we technically, our action does like sort of have a try catch around the whole thing because Remix is or React Router is going to take that error and then pass it off to our error boundary, and we are handling that with our general error boundary that we are exporting from here. And so you don't really need to worry about adding try catches around stuff where you can't really give the user any actionable feedback anyway. So that like this is a long way to get to the point that I'm trying to make, I guess, which is I add special error handling for specific things that both I can take action and the user can take or the user can take action. So if this query is to fail, then I can't really take any action there. Like, what do I do? I guess like I could report that, which we have Sentry set up in here, and so Sentry would automatically report that, so I don't need to do anything for that. And then show the user an error message, which this is already set to do as well anyway. And then we do have some things that the user could do something about. Well, actually, this one's not like note not found. Like, it's not really something the user could do something about. But I do still think that this is useful. Maybe you could improve it by saying, note not found, like parentheses, was it deleted? Question mark or something like that. So then the user's like, oh, somebody must have deleted this note without me realizing it or something. So anywhere that you can add a little bit of extra context that could be helpful to the user. Give the user something active that they could do. That also includes like the user is blocked, but here's some helpful information that you can talk to support about to help like support know what to do when you reach out to them. As far as like these spots where we have error handling, if we fail to get this array buffer, turn it into a buffer blob or whatever, there again, not really too much that the user can do about that. Potentially, we could say like, "Hey, you uploaded an image that has a problem or something." Like you could say that that was the reason because this is updating not just the image but also the title, and so they like it could be useful to say, "Hey, this is the specific part of what you uploaded that had the problem." I think that there's probably a way. You would probably do a dot catch or a try catch around this, and then you would use the context add issue so that you could say, hey, this is the specific one that it failed on. That could be really beneficial. I think you can take context right here, and then like I would. If you were worried about that, I don't know how likely that is to fail. But if that was something that you were worried about, then you could stick the dot catch on here and then add a context add issue I think we've got code and message here, but you can also add like a specific field. I don't do that in here because the user doesn't actually send the ID. That's a hidden field for them, so it doesn't make sense. We just add it to the whole form and then they see that. But here, you do know which image it is, and so you could say, hey, here's the image that was causing the problem. So yeah, anyway, to bring this back to a basic principle, you want to give the user a really good user experience, and so you add error handling, or first of all, yes, handle all your errors and report them all. But then you add additional error handling when there's something that when doing that would help the user experience. So does that answer your question, Scott? Do you have any follow-ups on that?
Yeah, no, that definitely helps out a lot. I don't think I was thinking so much more on like the user experience side. I was thinking of, and it's really helpful to think of it that way. I was definitely thinking about it more on like on my own end when this fails. How do I know as a dev this is a problem? Let me look at the logs.
Yeah.
And I'm not as I'm just starting to familiarize myself more with the Epic stack. I have to look into like I didn't set up like the Sentry integration yet, but it seems like as you mentioned, like that type of stuff would be just logged there. I've used Sentry before, but yeah, like my instinct is always try to like log everything possible just so I know what the heck is going on. But I feel like I overanalyze it way too much.
Yeah.
But,
That's
yeah, no, this was helpful.
That's part of what Sentry will help out with too, because they kind of do log everything. They don't log everything, but they will handle errors. They actually have a blog post about how logging is, I don't know, I don't want to say unnecessary, but like Sentry logging versus error reporting or something like that. Sentry versus logging. Yeah, I'll stick this in the Discord because it is kind of interesting. I'll throw, yeah, well, whoops. Here, we're going to throw it in here too so that we don't lose track of things. But yeah, this kind of made me think, yeah, it's just kind of interesting idea that like Sentry, I don't know. I can see a lot of value in logging. When I was at PayPal, it was nice to be able to look at logs and see, oh, wow, that's why that spike happened. But often those sorts of searches are associated with errors anyway. So I don't know. Anyway, something to think about. It doesn't look like they're saying don't have logging,
Yeah.
but logging is just kind of noisy. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like an old company I worked at, we didn't use Sentry. We used it was on Heroku. I think we used Paper Trail, and we would look for like dot errors and log errors specifically, and then from there, it was just put on Monday or something like that where those errors were happening. So we kind of like had to use logging in that architecture,
Hmm.
which wasn't great, but yeah, it's like I still have like those instincts. It's like we need
Mm.
everything kind of spit somewhere.
Yeah, I think that especially early on in a product where you're not quite sure what could go wrong, having a lot of logs can be really useful. And as long as you have a good place to digest those, then that can be useful. Before you have a lot of users, just watching the logs as they go can be useful, especially during development. Um, yeah, I never worked directly on the logging solution when I was at PayPal, so I definitely accessed logs and used them to debug production issues. But I think that we had different levels of logs, some that were you could enable in development and others that like it was just too noisy even for us, like it just was too resource intensive. And so we had like a threshold for whether a log would show up in production. um, but yeah, logging can be helpful. I especially use logs in unusual situations. In fact, we have one that we're kind of talking about right now in a pull request. I think it's in the root loader right here, where we're saying, hey, if there's a user ID, then let's go find a unique or throw. Um, and the pull request is actually to remove the or throw. And I actually kind of feel like that might be a good idea. But I need to think about it some more. But what we do in here is we check if there is a user ID, but there's no user, then we're going to log something weird happen and redirect them. We're going to log them out and then redirect them. And so I'm pretty sure what happened here was I said Prisma user find unique. And then later, and I had like this extra logic. And then later I added this or throw. And I'm thinking we probably, like, since we are handling that weird case where there's a user ID, that user ID is going to come from the request that's in a cookie. So we've got a user who has an ID in their cookie, but there's no user in the database that matches that ID. That's the weird situation, and so that's why we're logging. I should probably improve this as well. I looked at this when I was looking at that PR. I was like, yeah, that's a really bad error message. We should probably have like, be specific about what weird thing is going on. This is a pretty unusual sort of thing to happen. But here's something that my brother said. He works at Microsoft. He's on the Azure team. He's in charge of all memory on Azure. So that's fun. He's like hardware guy. But he said at scale, even edge cases become common. And so even something like this, like, probably should think more about it. So anyway. Okay,
Great,
good.
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question, Scott. We got a couple more here in Discord, but noticed Chirag joined us. Did you have a question, or are you just hanging out too? You're muted right now.
Yeah, I am unmuted now. Yes, I have a small question. Like, I was using Conform
Mm-hmm.
with Zord, but in starting, I found it really hard to find some documentation that I can follow of how to properly use Conform, and all of the components that I have are controlled components,
Yeah. So
and
you've gone through this, and this wasn't enough, or have you not seen the docs for Conform?
yes. So this is the doc that I was following.
Mm-hmm.
What I was specifically looking for is uh, when my JSON is having a Boolean value and I want to link that Boolean to a checkbox in my front end, but I'm not able to find a proper doc that will help me to link from a Boolean to a conform a sort schema to conform, and
Mm.
conform to the front end controlled component.
Yeah, gotcha. So there's probably some docs in here about this. Booleans are kind of funny with the way that forms work. Um, yeah, here we go. It talks about it right there. If the schema is z.boolean, treat the value as true if it equals on. Um, and I don't think that you should have to do anything about that. I think oh yeah, that's what it says. Automatic type coercion. So it does handle that for you. So I'm not, I can show you an example in the Epic stack where we do this. Here, I just realized I need to remember people really like it when I'm using dark mode when I stream. I should probably make that automatic. Yeah, so in the login screen, we have a Boolean for the remember me checkbox. So if we go under auth and where's login? Here we go. We've got our remember. We set that as a Boolean. It's optional. And then if I go remember, here I handle new session accepts a Boolean. So I say remember. If it's not defined, then it's false. And I could probably do that in the schema as well. Like I could probably say .default false. That would probably work as well. And then we have a checkbox field that we pass the input props for our checkbox button. Type is checkbox. Like this could be, yeah, like there's nothing special about conform that we're doing here. Checkbox is an input, and so we're using get input props from Zod. The fields that we want, the remember field, and those fields of course come from use form. So we're not doing anything special beyond the login form schema, which just has z Boolean optional. And then when we're consuming that, when it's parsed, this is a Boolean instead of on. So the conform kind of handles the kind of quirky way that the web treats checkboxes. Does that answer your question? Does that help at all to have an example?
I'm not exactly sure. When I tried, I need to, use that conversion from if it is on, then transform to true. If it is true, then transform to on kind of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
I did not check this that you just showed. I already took a snapshot, but
Okay.
I'll
I'll throw it
give
in the Discord
it
here
another
too.
look. Yes, yeah,
Hopefully that is
that's great.
helpful. Yeah, there was a while at the beginning of Conform in earlier versions where you did have to do this coercion, but it looks like they are handling that automatically. I'll throw this in here too when you use parse with Zod. So hopefully that is helpful. Good luck.
Yeah, I'll try.
Okay, sweet. Anybody else in the Zoom got a question, or are we good to go forward?
I do.
Yeah.
And I asked in Discord too
Oh, okay. There you are. Okay,
about
sweet.
that.
Ran into an issue someone trying to render an input component was too lazy to provide an ID attribute. We'd used a generate random ID function that uses mathrand. In React 19, this would be perfect use case for use ID hook. Yes, that's exactly what it's for. If I can't use React 19, what can I do? I have an answer for you. More context. I think actually the use ID hook was introduced in React 18, so you should be able to use it. But if you're an even older, then I have a solution for you there too. We are indeed server rendering. That's good. And I may or may not have hydration issues. Yeah, you would if you're using math random. Yeah. Yeah, this is good. So first off, I would check the use ID hook. And actually, it could be helpful. So I will mention it. We have in our forms use ID. Where is it? Yeah, so this is what I do. So I will take the input props. I'll create a fallback ID, and then if the input props has an ID, then we'll just use that. Otherwise, we fall back to this fallback. and that's the ID that we use. So can be nice. That way people don't have to worry about whether they're being lazy or not. They just don't have to worry about it at all. And what's nice about this too, having a setup like this, is that then the label is properly associated and the errors associated as well. So you don't have to worry about wiring all those things up. So a field component like this is really quite helpful. I'll throw this in the Discord. So to answer your question about what if I don't have use ID, which by the way, like I said, I think I'm pretty positive is available in React 18. But let's say you're on 17 or 16. What I would use is Reach UI. Whoop, that is not. How do we find this? Reach UI. I think it's reach.tech or something. Yeah, here we are. So, wow, no dark mode in this. But they had this auto ID that is a use ID. I can't remember how they do this. It's kind of interesting. I think what they do is they server render with nothing, and then they have a use effect that adds the ID after the fact, or something like that. It seems wrong, but I'm really curious. Where's the? Normally they have a link to the GitHub. Here we go. GitHub. Let's see what they do, just for the fun of it. We've got our utils probably. Use ID. Oh, whoops. Use ID. All right. Oh, whoops. Oh, make ID. That's interesting. Huh. Oh, they call it auto ID. That's right. So what are they doing? There you go. That's documentation for you. So they have use layout effect is use isomorphic layout effect. And then they just have a counter that they increment. Maybe React use ID. Oh, sweet. So they've got like a fallback for that. So that's interesting. And then, yeah, they'll just use that if it exists. Otherwise, they have their provided ID or server handoff complete. Where is that? Yeah, so that's just a Boolean they've got. If it is complete, then they generate an ID. Otherwise, it's null. Okay, interesting. Then we've got our initial ID. We stick that in our use state. And then on use layout effect, that doesn't run on the server. Neither does use effect. Patch ID after render. We do this in use layout effect to avoid rendering flicker. Yeah. Though it'll make the first render slowly. Yeah. I don't know who wrote this, but it wasn't Ryan, because he would not care about that at all. It's not going to be slow at all. This will be very fast. And then use effect. So server handoff complete is false, then we set it. So flag all future uses of use ID to skip the update dance. Yeah, okay. Where is server handoff complete? That's interesting. Oh, I see. So like maybe it's server rendered now, or it's client rendered now, and then somebody opens up a dialog, and that dialog has form stuff. We don't need to worry about the server hand. I'm kind of confused by this. We generate an ID. Oh, okay, we generate it on the server. Oh, okay, so here's what's going on. We generate one on the server so that the server rendered stuff has IDs, because you want that. You need them to have IDs. And then on the client, when it hydrates, those IDs actually will change potentially, but they change in a use layout effect, so it will be imperceptible, and because it's in a use layout effect, it's not going to cause hydration errors. So that's what's going on. That's how they do it. I knew they did stuff with use effect, but it was more complicated than I remembered. So anyway, if you need to polyfill it, this is what you would do. And honestly, I would be comfortable just copy pasting this, but you could also just install the package. It's unlikely to ever change. So.
Cool. So that, just to follow up, doing what we're doing right now with math random would definitely cause these like weird layout bugs. So right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well,
That was my
I don't
suspicion,
know.
but nobody believed me.
I don't know about layout bugs, but it will 100% cause hydration errors. And when there's a hydration error, React says, oh, like I can't trust any of this stuff. So I'm not going to try and take the HTML you gave me and add event handlers to it. I'm going to generate a brand new virtual DOM over here, and then I'm going to enter HTML on top of what you already have. So I'll just like completely overwrite everything, which like when it's all done, everything's fine. It's not a big deal, but it can cause problems if the user has focus on an input or stuff like that. All of that. If they've already started typing an input, that all goes away. And so, yeah, those hydration errors and warnings, they're not a joke. Like you don't just suppress it like a lot of people seem to want to do. It is like you want to solve those. And so, yeah, this is how you do that.
Cool. Thanks.
Yep. Okay, great. Let's take a look at the other questions.
Kent, one follow-up
Yeah,
question.
yeah. Hi, Naresh.
Yeah. Why can't we use something like UUID which uniquely generates an ID? Like,
Could you say
uh,
that again? Sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
why can't we use UUID, some unique random ID generator for this
Oh,
use case?
yeah. So the reason that you can't do that is it only really applies with when you're server rendering. So like what you could do is here. That's language JSX. Here we go. So what you could do is have a function that's your use ID, and here we're gonna yeah, here, there you go. You could do something like that. That would work. Where you well, no, this would totally not work. Never mind. But you could say, here's my ID is 0. And then we'd say my ID is use memo. And, or actually even better, something even more stable than use memo, my ID is use state ID plus plus, and then return my ID. This would totally work. And you would not export default because that's insanity. We're going to just export this. Don't use default exports. They're the worst. Unless you're using a framework that expects a default export, which is also just silly. But this would totally work if you're not server rendering. The problem is if you're server rendering, then the order in which elements are rendered can potentially change. And so the order in which use ID is called could be different on the client than it was on the server. And therefore, your IDs could be different. So that's the reason why you can't just like make your own use ID hook. Yeah, and that's why it has to be this complicated. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, like so iteration issues. If I just generate one random ID there, and if that doesn't like hold on UI, then there is a change between consecutive renders, which
Yeah.
will cause hydration issue.
Yep, exactly. The IDs won't match, and then you get the hydration error. Yep. Cool. Okay, so we got Scott's question. I don't know how to say this, so I'm not going to try. I am going to try. Dimitro64. Hey, what do you think about React Native? Are you going to make courses about it? Wondering, is it a good idea to learn and work with it, or better keep going with Web and React? Great question. I would recommend that you just learn the stuff that you want to learn, focus on that, and if you want to get into native stuff, then you will can absolutely get jobs doing React Native and all that stuff. For myself, I really like the web a lot, and as an educator, I feel like it's there. Let me say this differently. I'm the kind of educator that wants to be really, really, really good and know the stuff that I'm teaching very, very deeply. And I can't do that if I'm learning like 60 different technologies. And so I focus very heavily on React and the web, JavaScript, HTML, CSS. and like all of the things necessary to build an app like the Epic Stack and the Epic Workshop app and my personal website. And I just go deep on what you need to be able to accomplish that. And then I teach people how I did those things. And there's enough overlap with what they all do, with what you all do, that I can teach you something valuable. If I wanted to get into React Native, then that's time I'm spending getting really good at React Native that I'm not spending getting really good at my other stuff. And that's fine, but it just means I can't go as deep. I have to be more shallow on my knowledge with those. And I think that there's plenty for me to do in the web. And so that's why I haven't done anything with native, is because the web is keeping me busy enough and I'm happy with it. But yeah, if you're interested in React Native or building native apps, if I wanted to build a native app, I would 100% use React Native. I wouldn't think of doing anything else. So that is, that is that. Great. Hopefully that answers your question. They asked that at 9:40, so they know I'm streaming, so I'm not going to bother answering this now like I often do. Okay, and Tarek, I have a question about migrating from Next 12 to the Epic Stack. I have API calls that are used on both the server and the client, so I can't use .server files for them. Would I need to duplicate the request handler, or is there a better approach? For example, if I needed to include a token in a client-side API call, how should I handle that in the Epic Stack? Also, do you have any advice on the best way to approach migration like this? This is a big undertaking. I have never used Next.js 12, and so I can't give you specific advice on that. But to answer your specific question about API calls that are used on both the server and the client, I would first say, is there a reason, like for a specific API call, is there a reason that that API call can't just happen on the server and then let React Router handle like calling that server loader? Ultimately, you put stuff in a loader and it's going to get called just on the server, but it's going to get called by the client as the user's navigating around. And so most things you probably can just put in the server, and as the user's navigating, like those functions are still getting called. They're just getting called through a fetch request, and then that function gets called, and then the response goes back to the client. So it will apply to both the server render and the client render. Now, if you really need to call it from the client for some reason, maybe you don't want to go through the server, it's a third-party API and you want the user to call it directly or something. There are use cases for that. Then you could look at client loaders and client actions, and those can actually call the server themselves as well. So I would look at loaders and actions and client loaders and client actions, learn a little bit about how those work, and that should help you decide, okay, where do I put different things? If I need to include a token in the client-side API call, how should I handle that in the Epic Stack? I'm assuming this token would be, let's imagine you're uploading to S3 and you give them a temporary token to be able to do that or something. Then what I would do, so you're uploading a giant file. You don't want to proxy that. Just let them go straight to S3. I would probably use a client action for that. So yeah, look into client actions for stuff like that. Any advice on approaching a migration? So depends on the size of the app, but for most apps that we get paid for, you probably wouldn't want to just barrel through and do it all at once. You need to be able to release and keep things going over time. And there are a couple of ways that you could accomplish this. You probably don't want to have a single process that's running both your Next app and your Remix app, or as sub-processes or anything, or even an Express server. I think some people have had an Express server that serves Next.js on some routes and Remix on other routes, or React Router. And there's been success with that. I don't think that that's the approach I would want to take. You probably have a load balancer or something, or an Nginx or something, and you can just have these services sitting here, and you have your Nginx that just routes traffic. And so for each route that you have, you just say, okay, now these features are ready on the next app. So send all traffic for those routes over here to the Remix app, and all the old stuff goes back to the next app. And so the user, the biggest drawback to that is the user gets full page refreshes between those two apps. You would have the same problem if you did like an Express server that handled both as well. Like you're probably not going to very easily get both of these running in the same client. You're probably going to need a full page refresh between them until it's totally done. So I would probably just look at your load balancer, and I think actually like Cloudflare can do this. You just have route rules and stuff like that. Send this to this app and this one to that. Yeah, pretty much most providers can do that for you. That's probably the approach I'd take. But again, I've never done it before. I know that some people have done it that way before and found success. So good luck. It's exciting. Okay, that's the last question, at least in here. So let me go over to our chat and see if there was anything else. That question was answered. Somebody asked, hey Kent, what making mobile applications, any course on that soon? I think that was the same question. Yeah, and I guess I didn't answer like, am I going to make a course about it? I only make courses about things that I know stuff about. So I'm not going to make a course about native unless I start making native apps. If you see me start posting about native apps, then you can expect a course from me, but not until then. Okay, I think that's everything. So that works out. Actually, I've got some people coming over to the house to work on something, so I'm gonna take off and chat with them. So thanks everybody for joining. This was a lot of fun, and I hope to see you all in the future. Actually, you know what? I almost forgot. I need to talk about a couple of things. One, something exciting. I just wrote a boss letter. Wow. Here we go, dark mode. Yeah, so you can copy paste this letter to your boss to explain why they should send you to Epic WebConf. So this is, yeah, hopefully could help you get your way to Epic WebConf. I just realized that these are linked, but if you copy paste it, that link goes away. Really, you should probably just send them this URL and then they can read it themselves. But I should probably update this so that we have like in parentheses the address to the site so that they can easily go handle that. But anyway, yeah, you can copy paste this thing, or you know what? Maybe I just do a copy thing here. I don't know. If you copy paste it, the links should come along. Anyway. Yeah, this should get you a good start on convincing your boss to send you to Salt Lake in March. And it's going to be awesome. I'll mention big discount for teams of 3 or more. And if you send 5 or more, then you get free licenses to Epic React for every person that you send. And if that person already has Epic React, you can give it to somebody else, which is pretty huge value. So I want to see people there at the conference. It is going to be fantastic. Look at these people. They're amazing. And more and more of them all the time are getting their interviews on here. So you should go and learn about them. They're really, really cool people. So yeah, and then if you're watching this later, then you can check out the Call Kent podcast and ask a question on here and I will answer. And yeah, that way you can get your questions answered even if you didn't make it today. And then finally, if you do have any other questions that you're fine waiting for an answer for, stick it in the Office Hours channel. So with that, I'm going to take off. Thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you all in the future. Bye.